Good morning everyone, this is Mike.
And this is Pauline. And we start today with the Society news for Friday the 2nd of November. Tuesday, there will be a coffee morning held in support of the Society on Tuesday the 6th of November at the Post Office in Knighton. All are welcome from 10:30 till 12 noon. The swimming group are swimming this Tuesday the 6th of November in Ryde at the Waterside Pool. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. Wednesday, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this Wednesday, the 7th of November, from 10:30 a.m. This week we will be joined by the Macular Degeneration Group for their monthly meeting. There will also be the low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 12 noon on Wednesday the 7th of November, our weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. Thursday, the Thursday Social Group are meeting on Thursday 8th of November at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. You can knit or just have a chat, then later in the afternoon volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. Any other news? Short story writing competition. Last Tuesday, Chris Kane, Site for Wight's Marketing, Communications and Fundraising Manager, visited Vectis Radio to chat with Maggie and Calvin Curry about the latest news on the short story writing competition. You can listen to Maggie and Calvin Curry in conversation with Chris later in the programme. The closing date for entries for the short story writing competition is Friday, 9th of November, so there's still time to write a festive tale. For more information, visit our website www.iwsb.org.uk. Fashion Focus Group. This is an article submitted by Masters Research student Faye from the University of Portsmouth. Hello, my name is Faye. I am writing a paper on disability and clothing, analysing the issues that occur when choosing clothes and wearing them. This will then become project focused on visual impairment, looking at possible issues and plausible solutions. My reason for choosing this subject is my mum, who suffered with MS. By the end of her life she was bedbound. She still wanted to be glamorous, but different complications made that difficult. So this project is close to my heart. To begin with, I'm trying to create a focus group based on the Isle of Wight to discuss fashion and clothing. It will be an informal discussion over coffee and cake, with hopefully lots of laughter. If you're nervous about coming along, please feel free to bring a friend or family member, as I am aiming to create a very relaxed environment. Thanks for your time, and I hope to meet some of you at the focus group. Our trustee, Ruth Hollingshead, is Faye's point of contact at Site for Wight. If you would like to register an interest in taking part in Faye's Fashion and Clothing Focus Group, please contact the Society on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. They will then pass your details to Ruth.
British Wireless for the Blind Fund. Visually impaired people are being invited to see if they are eligible for a free specially adapted radio from a charity. British Wireless for the Blind Fund, that's BWBF, provides the equipment to those with sight loss across the UK who meet its criteria. Radio is a lifeline to those who are blind and partially sighted, providing companionship and helping them to keep in touch with what is going on in the world, as well as the local community. BWBF offers equipment free of charge to those who have sight loss and are in receipt of a means-tested benefit. BWBF is launching its Reaching Out campaign to try and increase awareness about their equipment and help more people who are blind or partially sighted. Regional Development Manager Sophie Weldon said, "Our radios are designed so that a person with sight loss can use them easily and independently. All equipment is delivered to the home by a volunteer who sets it all up and provides support in using it. We offer a range of equipment: digital radios, CD players, memory stick players, internet radio, and even a specially designed app. Our radios are vital to someone who cannot see. They provide news, information and entertainment but also, more importantly, companionship and a friendly voice. If you or someone you know is interested in a BWBF radio, please contact Sophie Weldon at sophie@blind.org.uk or phone 01283 790 208 or 075 40 724063. To find out more about British Wireless for the Blind Fund, follow us on Twitter at British Wireless. Like us on Facebook or go to www.blind.org.uk.
Now we move on to the scaffolding news, and we start with Cowes and East Cowes. Current scaffolds. 93 High Street Cowes, scaffold up within hoarding. Cowes Library, Betford Road, Cowes. Current hoardings, 93 High Street Cowes. Current skips at 13 Oakfield Road, East Cowes and 12 Prince's Close, East Cowes.
The Newport area current scaffolds are Santander, 56 St James's Street, Newport. Key Cottage, 12 Key Street, Newport. 10 St James's Street, Newport. NatWest, 107 St James's Street, Newport. 61A Pyle Street, Newport. The EE Shop, 122 High Street, Newport. Samaritan's Shop, Lugley Street, Newport. And number 2 Bedford Road, Newport. Current skips are 65 Medina Avenue, Newport. 38 Highfield Road, Newport. Building materials, EE Shop, 122 High Street, Newport.
And now we go to Ryde, Seaview and Bembridge, and we have current scaffolds at Boots, 170 High Street, Ryde, Hills Court, High Street, Ryde, 12A High Street, Ryde, 105 High Street, Ryde, the Castle Inn, 164 High Street, Ryde, 47 George Street, Ryde, My Dentist, that's 10 to 11 Cross Street, Ryde, 43 Nelson Street, Ryde, Pierview Court, St Thomas Street, Ryde, and Seaview Pharmacy, Pier Road, Seaview. And current skips at 32 Fallens Road, Bembridge, 91 Monkton Street, Ryde, Woodlands Ryde Road, Seaview. New skips now at 21 to 23 St Michael's Avenue, Ryde. And building materials, car park, Brooks Road, Bembridge.
In Sandown and Shanklin area, current scaffolds at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. The Toymaster, 103 High Street, Sandown. Sandown Library, 119 High Street, Sandown. And 46 Fitzroy Street, Sandown. Current skips are at 13 Coronation Garden, Shanklin. Current hoardings are the Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Junctions at St Boniface Road, Arthur's Hill at Shanklin. The Ventnor area, current scaffolds are corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor. 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor. Current skips are Seascape, St Catherine's Road, Ventnor. New skips at Mead Cottage, Newport Road, Knighton. And the freshwater area, current scaffolds at Duo, 86 Avenue Road, Freshwater, and the Barn, Main Road, Thorley.
And this week's In Touch, rubbish recycling. How do you manage your recycling when you are visually impaired? And how squinting may have helped Leonardo da Vinci's art? What help can you get if you struggle to recycle your rubbish? Listeners talk about the problems they have with recycling their rubbish, from knowing which bin to put the right rubbish in to finding it again once it has been collected. We talked to Wayne Priestley from the Association for Public Service Excellence about what help visually impaired residents can expect to receive from their local council. Professor Christopher Tyler from London City University believes he has found evidence artist Leonardo da Vinci had an eye condition called strabismus, where the eyes are misaligned. He thinks this may have had an impact on the way Da Vinci represented three-dimensional art on a canvas. Ross King, biographer of Claude Monet, says Monet's cataracts impacted his work later in life. The presenter will be Peter Wight and the producer is Lee Kumatat.
We now move on to the County Press for November the 2nd, 2018, with headlines: Free parking to go. Budget paper points are 3% council tax rise, tip hours cut again, and social care fees are up. A 3% council tax rise paying for parking in key locations such as Node Hill in Newport and Union Street in Ryde, and even shorter tip opening hours are among the bitter pills islanders may have to swallow if the Isle of Wight Council budget is approved. Parking charges across the island are also set to rise, as are Wight Care social care charges, home to school transport costs and crematorium and cemetery charges, as the council looks to save £5.5 million in 2019 to 2020. It said tough choices will have to be made, as the plans were unveiled 5 months before they are due to come into force. Parking across the island will also become more expensive, as on-street charging is brought in for Crocker Street and Node Hill in Newport, in Ryde and on all island esplanades. The council will also introduce £1 evening fees in all on-street areas from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. Councillor Stuart Hutchinson, member for Finance on the Council Cabinet, said, "In some towns on-street parking is free and others it's paid for. We are trying to introduce an element of fairness. The other thing introducing charges will bring is increased turnover in those areas where we levy a charge. So in those areas where people are parking for free all day, they will only park for a short period of time because they will have to pay for it." Councillor Jeff Brodie, member for Newport East, said, "We talk about regenerating our towns such as Newport and trying to encourage more people into the town, yet they want to start charging people for parking overnight or coming in for dinner in the evening. They are trying to tax the leisure economy. Mrs May says austerity is over, but I would like to see the proof of that." Councillor Julie Jones-Evans from Newport Central said, "I am not sure with regards to Crocker Street. They have done their figures correctly. That area is largely residential, so people will be able to buy a residence permit. Should people just visiting in the day be the only ones to pay? Lynn Bottom Tip will also be closing for an hour earlier each day. The council has said this will have minimal impact as there is low footfall at this time." Savings have been identified from all services, with 95% coming through efficiencies, which the council has said will have little or no impact, and 5% in cuts. Council tax will also rise by another 2.99%. Although Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance Stuart Hutchinson said it would not rule out an additional rise if the government allowed it. This year, 3% of the council tax rise was allocated for adult social care. Next year, a 3% increase in Wight care costs and a review of all care packages could save the council over £1 million. Council reserves now stand at £11.2 million, approximately 3% of the overall budget. Surplus capital would be used for additional projects by the council, including increasing the number of affordable houses. Plans will go before the council on Thursday, recommending the set-up of a local housing company to deliver affordable housing for island residents. A review of the Highways PFI will deliver £1 million in savings, with efficiencies in operation and maintenance. Councillor Stewart said, by realising the budget ahead of schedule, he hoped to work with opposition councillors. Other savings identified include ending the contract for protective equipment and providing it in-house for the fire and rescue services, which shows £80,000 in savings, increasing the Shanklin lift charges from £1.50 return to £2, which shows savings of £10,000, leasing units at the BAE site in Cowes, £33,000 of income.
Police chiefs say the Isle of Wight is still a safe place to live. Despite figures that show murder, drug and alcohol-related violence, serious sexual assaults and crimes against children have all risen dramatically across the island. According to data collected between April 2016 and March 2017, there's been a surge in violent crime across the island, although the total number of crimes recorded remains below the national rate, 70 crimes per 1,000, compared to 75 nationally. A report published by the Community Safety Partnership, CSP, shows drug-related violence has risen by 2,367%, with 101 recorded incidents, up from just 3 incidents the previous year. There were also 4 murder or manslaughter cases, 587 incidences of alcohol-related public violence, 12 gun crimes and 144 knife crimes. The CSP has identified several areas for priority, including tackling youth-on-youth violence, domestic abuse and road safety. Isle of Wight District Commander Superintendent Sarah Jackson said part of the rise was due to the change in recording standards. She said some incidents that would have probably been recorded as antisocial behaviour are now being recorded as crimes, such as assaults or public order. For example, a fight between 2 parties previously would have been recorded as one crime. In reality, there are potentially 2 victims in this set of circumstances. Therefore, this could now be recorded as more than one offence, even though it relates to a single incident. Superintendent Jackson said although drug-related violence had risen, the figures remained lower than the mainland. Incidents of domestic violence have also risen to 1,428 recorded offences, up by 38%. A third were repeat offences, with 34% of the victims men. On average, a victim will sustain around 50 incidents of abuse before reporting it to the police. CSP Chair Amanda Gregory said they were working with organisations across the island to tackle the issue. Crimes against children, which includes violent injury and rape, have increased by 45%, with 277 recorded incidents. The island's children in need, child protection and looked after children rates continue to be above the national average. The rate of children killed or seriously injured on the roads is significantly higher than comparative areas at 33.2% per 100,000. Just under a quarter of all violent crime involved alcohol, with 17% taking place at night. Hate crime on the island has risen to 101 incidents, with over half related to race and a quarter to sexual orientation. The CSP survey showed more than 85% of islanders reported feeling safe in their community. Superintendent Jackson added, the CSP is proud to say the island is still a safe place to live, and this is supported by the recent CSP survey of residents.
Homeless man's death exposes system failings. The death of a homeless man in a seafront bus shelter has prompted a safeguarding review, revealing the same mistakes are being made time and time again. Howard Durham's body was found in the Ryde Esplanade shelter on March the 21st last year. The County Press spoke to Howard shortly before he suffered a fatal cardiac arrest at the age of 53, when he was broke, sleeping rough and drinking 6 litres of cider a day. A former tax advisor who loved cricket, sailing and flying, Howard's life spiralled out of control after he was jailed for fraud. He ended up on the streets, an alcoholic, regularly beaten and robbed by drug users who pretended to befriend him. huddled in a Ryde churchyard, talking on a phone paid for by his sister during one of the coldest winters in recent years, he told the county press, "Maybe it's karma for all the bad things I've done, but I don't think I deserve this." The review carried out by the Isle of Wight Safeguarding Adults Board, that's the SAB, found Howard had slipped through the cracks in the system. It found health and social care agencies and emergency services did not work together and repeatedly missed opportunities to help Howard. Despite his repetitive behaviour, he was admitted to hospital almost 20 times, once on the day before Christmas Eve, with an armful of incontinence pads and nowhere to go, then discharged and readmitted again. Incidents were dealt with in isolation. There was no coordinated approach and no lead agency was appointed. He was not considered a priority need for housing, and social workers did not even complete an assessment. At no point did all the organisations attend a meeting to agree a plan to address Howard's housing, health and social care needs. The review noted the lack of public sector funding and emergency housing for people with substance abuse problems, but nonetheless branded the failures major and significant omissions. It praised individual social workers and police officers, hostel staff and charity volunteers, all of whom tried to help Howard, but found it was ultimately the system that failed him. His sister, Fran Benford, and aunt, Patricia Morton, tried to seek help for Howard. Then MP Andrew Turner wrote to the Council Chief Executive, John Metcalfe, and Head of Adult Social Care for Dr. Carol Tozer on her behalf, but to no avail. The family contacted social workers and housing officers, but said council staff were obstructive and rude. The review made recommendations emphasising the importance of agencies working together to prevent further deaths. However, it found similar systemic failings had been identified in previous safeguarding reviews and not addressed. Patricia, aged 87, who lives in London, said, "Although valid suggestions have been made, I don't believe anything will change. I don't think this review will make any difference at all. There are homeless people in the same situation as Howard, and no one will take responsibility for them." When it was announced the review would be carried out, Fran, aged 61, who lives in Dorset, said, "The Safeguarding Adults team did nothing to safeguard Howard, which ultimately signed his death warrant. There are so many lessons to be learnt. I hope other homeless people on the island are afforded more compassion and help, and Howard didn't die cold and alone in a bus shelter to no avail." The police contribution to the review suggested homeless people were still struggling in exactly the same circumstances.
Hover Travel has axed its 15-minute hovercraft service for good. Following a comprehensive review of all areas of the business, the company said it could not provide such a frequent service and guarantee its reliability. Its winter timetable until March 31st includes crossings every 30 minutes during peak commuting times and an hourly service during the rest of the day. During the summer, a 30-minute service will operate all day. The news was announced by the company following weeks of delays and cancellations on the Ride to Southsea service. Services will be provided by one hovercraft, either the Island Flyer or the Solent Flyer, while the second remains on standby and will be brought into service when required. Managing Director Neil Chapman said, "Any reduced service is not good news. I'm not going to flower that up. But we have to be realistic. You have to make those painful decisions in business. Customers want a service they can book and know is going to run. This way we can give them that security, that reliability. With anything mechanical, things break down. If there are delays, we can bring in that second craft and keep to the advertised timetable. Yes, some commuter services will be full, but majority are only 50% full at the moment. I wasn't prepared to get the craft fixed, bring it back and say, 'We're all right, Jack.' It wouldn't be morally right to carry on as we were. We are part of the transport infrastructure, we are part of the economy, and we have to be reliable. People want quality, not quantity. In September, the company announced it would run a revised 30-minute timetable for 7 weeks due to a technical fault with the Solent flyer. Mr. Chapman revealed the fault with the ballast tank area required a fundamental modification to the craft, which will remain out of service throughout November. The Island flyer requires the same modification, which means it will be out of action for a number of weeks before the end of March. Mr. Chapman said it was too expensive to reintroduce the old decommissioned Freedom 90 and Island Express hovercraft. He said the new craft, which cost £5 million each, was the future of the company. He admitted the company could do better when it came to communicating with customers. A new customer newsletter, Hover News, is due to go live shortly. Following recent delays and cancellations, he said, "Passengers are frustrated and I accept that, but the reliability of the business is not in tatters."
MP wants answers from ferry firms. After 2 months of cross-Solent delays, breakdowns and failings, Island MP Bob Seeley has written to the 3 firms for answers. In a letter to Fran Collins, Chief Executive of Red Funnel, Keith Greenfield, Chief Executive of Wight Link, and Neil Chapman, Chief Executive of Hover Travel, Mr. Seeley wrote, "I am asking you individually to explain to Islanders your company's respective performances since the summer." In the letter, Mr. Seeley lists more than 40 incidents since August the 26th that have limited cross-Solent services. These include the engine fire on board Wight Link's White Sky, Red Funnel's Red Eagle collision with moored yachts in the Solent, Wight Link St Clair being pulled from service, causing more than 6-hour delays in Portsmouth due to an admin blunder, Red Funnel's Red Falcons collision with yachts and running aground off East Cowes, a lack of hover travel services for more than 8 hours on 2 occasions, and many other delays, cancellations and suspensions from the 3 firms. Mr. Seeley said, "Many islanders are concerned by your ability to get people and vehicles to and from the island without delays or cancellations. I should not need to state the need for a reliable service for islanders, regardless of whether they are going to the mainland for medical business or other reasons. An unreliable service damages the island and harms islanders. Delays have knock-on effects for those using other forms of public transport." Mr. Seeley said he was particularly keen for the chief executives to explain whether the current levels of technical or mechanical faults were acceptable and what steps they intended to take to ensure they ran the service they advertised. He also said he wanted specific answers from Red Funnel about the increase in accidents from Wight Link regarding the lack of certification, and from Hover Travel clearer information regarding issues with one of its craft. Mr. Seeley concluded, "This letter does not cast doubt on the efforts of those who work for you, and indeed it is wrong when they are verbally abused or criticised simply because they are the public face of your companies. However, can you understand the frustration of islanders at the current state of affairs?"
Our community was amazing. That's the message from residents of one of the houses affected by the devastating fire in Newchurch on Sunday. As fire tore through a row of terraced houses in the High Street, the village community pulled together to support the residents and the firefighters who were tackling the blaze. The Pointer Inn made sandwiches for the firefighters, and children were running in and out of the houses with tea and biscuits. "You don't realise how lucky you are to have such good neighbours until something like this happens," said Lucy Jones, who lives in one of the affected houses. The fire coursed through the upper floor of one mid-terrace house and spread through the loft space into the adjoining properties. Multiple crews of firefighters from across the island raced to the scene after the first emergency calls came in just before 10 a.m. An aerial ladder platform and an instant command unit also attended. When firefighters arrived, flames were seen filling the upstairs of one of the houses and smoke was pouring out of the roof. "We didn't realise immediately what was happening," resident Stuart Jones said. "We could smell smoke, but we just thought it was from a neighbour's log burner. Then we saw people outside staring at the roof. Joggers had stopped running and people were pointing. I ran out in my dressing gown and saw smoke coming out of the roof from the house 2 doors down. We phoned the fire brigade, got dressed, got the dogs, grabbed our phones and wallets, etc. and got out. Lucy added, by the time we went outside and realised what was happening, the fire was well alight. Everyone is okay, everyone survived. It could have been a lot worse. The fire service were fantastic.
Ferry firm to use land as public car park. Red Funnel has snapped up another piece of land in East Cowes. The ferry company has bought the car park at Well Road next to King's Square and Waitrose. The company said, "We have started work on this to refurbish it and to reinstate it as a car park. There are no plans to erect a building on the site. Our intention is the reinstatement of the car park, which will be an asset to Red Funnel and to the town. It will be a public car park and therefore it will be for everyone's use."
Potential contamination from a former brickworks and munition storage could have affected a site where 12 houses will now be built. This week, councillors approved plans to develop land next to 255 Gunville Road by a vote of 10 to 2. However, concerns were raised the site may have been used for the deposit of ash from the nearby former brickworks. There may also have been a former gun battery, searchlight and munitions storage at the site, together with a nearby former refuse tip. Objectors said there was plenty of anecdotal evidence the site was contaminated. Planning officers said conditions had been placed on the plans to allow a staged approach to the building work, which would enable a thorough investigation of the site to determine if it was contaminated or not. A desktop study and site investigation would take place and any contamination would be dealt with. Building work would not take place until approved by the authority following a full report on the site. Concerns were also raised about overdevelopment, ecological concerns, impact on the stream, flood risk, drainage and sewer capacity, and the potential devaluing of neighbouring properties. The proposed housing would comprise a mix of 3 detached 4-bed houses, 6 semi-detached 3-bed houses, and 3 terrace 2-bed houses. The applicant has also agreed to provide £10,000 to upgrade nearby footpaths that will be affected by the building. At the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee meeting, Councillor Michael Lilly, who voted against the application, said, "If it is contaminated because it's historic, we will have a similar situation to Telford. You open it up and it will release a whole lot of contamination that has been buried for a long time and nature has dealt with. I am really concerned if we grant this, then there is no going back because I don't think there is satisfactory evidence given on the investigation of the area."
Island Conn Company goes bust after losses. The company which brought Island Conn to the Isle of Wight Alliance Convention has gone bust, meaning it will not be returning in 2019. In a statement on the company's website, it says the event staged at Cowes Enterprise College had incurred a large financial loss and the losses had also occurred at previous events. In the statement, the company said, "There has been a campaign of negativity and slander on certain social media outlets and specific Facebook-only groups that has pulled the rug out from under the event. We came to the island because we had a vision to create something new and fantastical, a big new event for the island. Our only aim was to bring people and certain communities together, and we had mostly achieved that. Every person associated with the company is no longer employed or contracted out. Remaining owed creditors will have payment plans set up with them and will be contacted by a company representative. Sorry about that. And will be contacted by a company representative. Any outstanding claims can be tendered to Alliance Convention through the official insolvency channels."
Plans to convert a former bank in Cowes into a Victorian-style shopping arcade with flats and a themed bed and breakfast were approved this week. A new post office has already moved into the building to be named Cowes Town Central, which will also sell local art and crafts and pop culture memorabilia. Steve Tewkesbury, who owns the bank and the neighbouring restaurant, that 60s place, said he had tried to engage with interested parties and had offered to consider any approach that would see a regeneration success in the town. Mr Tewkesbury said in reality there was zero in the way of an actual consensus plan. There was a desire to do something, but nothing specified. There was a question of funding, who would pay for it, whatever it was. The Gun Wharf Quays concept seemed to lack substance. Mr Tewkesbury said he had several unpleasant communications with stakeholders who claimed to represent Cowes Town Council. He said I was then threatened with compulsory purchase orders. Then I was shown a hand-drawn sketch of a 64-bed Travelodge and Pizza Express that went right across the harbour to the seafront. They had exactly the same opportunities as I had to buy the decommissioned bank. Cowes Town Council objected to the plans. Councillor Roger Bartram said, anything that brings spending into the town is welcome, or is it? We don't just want anything, we want something that fits in the street scene, which is pleasing to the eye, and we don't think this is it. An opportunity to enhance the appearance of the surrounding area has been missed. Members of the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee voted unanimously to approve the plans. Councillor Michael Lilly said, I do not think anyone could say this would not be a massive improvement on what is already there.
A perfume thief has been sent to prison. A shoplifter has been jailed after being caught stealing hundreds of pounds worth of items just months after he was given a suspended sentence. Roland Tomlin, aged 41, of Terminus Road, Cowes, was spared jail in June and given a suspended prison sentence for a non-dwelling burglary. The only condition of the suspended sentence was he didn't offend again within 18 months, but he was caught on October the 16th, stealing £260 worth of perfume from Boots, and Smout prosecuting told Isle of Wight magistrates. He was caught again the next day stealing £294 worth of clothing from JD Sports, and then 2 days later trying to steal jackets from Shipmates in Cowes, Mrs. Smout said. During the theft at Shipmates, a shop worker chased Tomlin down the high street and was joined by an off-duty police officer. Tomlin shouted, "If you come near me, I'll smack you," and was therefore charged with assault as well. Mrs. Smout told the court Tomlin pleaded guilty to all charges. Representing Tomlin, Barry Arnett said his client had suffered changes to his benefits, and when these changes came about, he had a period of no income and had no savings or credit card. Mr. Arnett said Tomlin had stolen the items to sell so he could feed himself and pay bills. Magistrates activated his 6-month suspended sentence and added another month for the new offences to run consecutively. Tomlin was ordered to pay £260 compensation to Boots.
Trail hunting will now be allowed on Motterston Estate after a new hunting licence was issued by the National Trust. Leading animal welfare charity, the League Against Cruel Sports, has urged the National Trust to cancel its controversial new licence to prevent wild animals being chased and killed by hounds. But the Isle of Wight Hunt has accused the League of continuing a class war stance. Director of the League's campaign, Chris Luffingham, said the Motterston Estate is a local treasure which showcases British nature at its best. Allowing a hunt to trample across the land, taking part in an activity which many people believe involves the killing of animals, completely goes against that philosophy. In a letter to the National Trust, the League cites how horses, hounds and followers are being granted free access to sections of the Motterston Estate, including a nature reserve and a site of special scientific interest. Mr. Luffingham added, "It's sad this licence has been issued, but now it's been done, the National Trust Estate needs to show its members and the public how it will ensure animals are safe on its land. We need to hear from it as to exactly how it will prevent foxes being killed by the hunt." Tony Tutton, General Manager of the Isle of Wight National Trust, said, "This is a national issue and it is the national perspective that needs to be taken into account. We have to abide by what was agreed at the National Trust AGM. A spokesperson for the National Trust said it had many measures, such as a national trail hunt management team and the introduction of formal monitoring of hunts on the ground to ensure hunts abide by their restrictions. The spokesperson said these measures reaffirm the importance of adherence to licence conditions and enable us to further safeguard our commitments to both conservation and access. Any activity associated with the term hunting continues to provoke strong emotions on both sides of the debate. We recognise our reforms will not satisfy everyone. Anthony Blest, Joint Master of the Isle of Wight Hunt, said the intended vote to ban trail hunting on National Trust land did not go through and the League should respect that vote. I cannot give an undertaking animals are completely safe, but by and large animals are safe on the land. Shooting is allowed and a large number of animals are not safe then. There are only a few people who feel strongly on this. What motivates the League is a view the Isle of Wight Hunt are toffs and elitist. It's a remnant of class war. If we went around harming a large number of animals, we would not exist. The National Trust has strict terms for the access we enjoy, and we have to abide by those strict rules.
Pavement trip blamed for man's death. A widow has called for better definition between the roads and pavements in God's Hill after her husband tripped and fell, then died soon afterwards. James Bamford, aged 87, did not return home after taking a holiday on the Isle of Wight, and his wife Pamela believes his death was a direct result of his fall. He tripped on the pavement in God's Hill High Street and broke his hip. After 3 weeks at St Mary's Hospital, he was transferred to a hospital nearer his home in Cumbria, but died after suffering 2 bleeds on the brain. Pamela said, "It was a blind corner on the road with no pavement, and when he went to step up onto the pavement, he tripped and broke his hip. With the number of elderly people who visit God's Hill and walk either side of the road, there may be yellow lines, but there are no markings to define the curb. It needs definition more. I thought they could shut the road and pedestrianise it for the holiday period so people can safely walk both sides of the road." An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said the installation of the 20 mph limit was done, in part due to the fact there are pinch points without pavement. Therefore, the only real action we could take was for lower limit. An Island Roads spokesperson added, "Island Roads is aware of the busy and unique nature of the road at this location, and as part of our duties to maintain a safe highway network, have carried out the inspections of it. Our own observations and recorded accident data do not identify an issue with the curbing at this location, which is clearly defined."
A teenager heard racial abuse at staff at St Mary's Hospital, a court heard. Drunk, Jay Pearson, 19, of Arthur Moody Drive, Gunville, admitted 2 charges of assaulting a person, 1 assault charge, and charges of racially or religious aggravated fear of violence by words, as well as racially aggravated common assault. He also admitted criminal damage, being drunk and disorderly, and resisting a police constable, which arose out of a separate incident. The court heard police were called to St Mary's after Pearson racially abused nurses and was completely out of control. He said there were people in the vicinity who had been grossly offended by what Pearson said. In another separate incident, Pearson banged and kicked on a door and police were called, resulting in him trying to headbutt another officer. Representing Pearson, Barney Arnott said his client, who had never been in trouble before, had suffered an astonishing fall. He added he drank so much he has no memory of what went on. He was behaving like a deranged animal. Those nurses were only trying to do their job. He is disgusted with his behaviour and disappointed with himself. Those people in the hospital should not have been subjected to this thuggery. Island magistrates branded Pearson's behaviour appalling and disgusting and jailed him for 6 months, suspended for a year. He was also ordered to pay £150 each to his victims. And
on that note, we're told that we have to say goodbye to you. So it's goodbye from Mike.
And it's goodbye from Pauline.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Good morning, everyone. This is the County Press for November the 2nd, 2018. This is Barry reading
And this is Sue.
And we'll begin with a letter, name and address supplied but withheld. Life sentence of suffering. Thank you to Jim Gibbons, who so sensitively asked the question, is it time to allow assisted dying? When a lingering and increasingly debilitating and painful death through bowel cancer turns out to be a relative blessing, as it cuts short the agonising mental torture of dementia, something has to be wrong. Collectively, we call ourselves humanity, but at times even the best possible treatment for humans would be classified as cruelty if it were inflicted on animals. It's hard to find the humanity here. My father and his father before him both suffered the cruelty of dementia, and I appreciate that deciding what is in an individual's best interest is tortuously difficult when they struggle to know things for themselves, never mind express it to others. But surely it is not beyond us to be more humane to those whose only prospect is continuing and deepening infirmity, despair and hopelessness. Why is such a premium placed on the quantity of human life when its quality is so utterly heart-wrenchingly impoverished? It may be arguable the better course would be to find cures for dementia and other similarly debilitating diseases. But must we give a life sentence to all those who suffer to a greater degree than we can begin to comprehend until these cures are developed?
This is from Tom Bodman in Shanklin. Accept the poll. I have questions for Glenn Coppeny. That was Islanders for Europe and the County Press letters 26th of October. The government voted by a large majority to give the people a vote, leave or remain, and promised to honour their choice. If they reneged on that promise and held a second referendum, would he accept and respect the result? If his answer is yes, why does he not accept the result of the first referendum? If his answer is no, there's no point in having a second vote. It is sometimes stated that we peasants did not know what we were voting for, yet David Cameron spent over £9 million of taxpayers' money stating the case for Remain. It was made very plain that leave meant quitting the single market and customs union. 17.4 million voted to leave. Grow up, Glenn. Act like a man and accept it.
And now I have from Ms. Marion Shore, Whitwell. I am very disappointed to hear a licence has been granted to hunt on National Trust land at Motterston. As a resident of the island, an animal lover, and a supporter of the League Against Cruel Sports, I find it absolutely incredible an organisation such as the National Trust, which is supposed to look after our special places, could possibly do such a thing. Even if by some miracle foxes are not attacked, they and other wildlife will be terrified, land will be damaged, and people will think it is okay to tear across the land like a bunch of hoodlums because a respected organisation such as the National Trust condones it. You cannot pretend to protect the land and allow hunting of any kind or for any reason.
From Ms. P. Lee, Sandown. Bus drivers. I had an appointment in Ryde last Friday, October the 26th, and travelled by bus. Alighting a number 3 bus from Sandown Library, as we travelled towards Brading, we came across an accident. Our driver was calm, had to reverse the double-decker along a main road and proceed on a different route. The return journey was even more eventful. I got on the bus at Ryde Library. A passenger from upstairs shouted to the driver that someone was on the floor. Again, our driver checked, called for an ambulance and reassured the remaining passengers. Our driver was cool, calm and collected throughout. Well done, Southern Vectis, for its marvellous training.
And we have a letter here from Thomas Munro, Stratford in London. Surely the time for the island to have a commercial airport is now. Is it too much to ask to seriously consider developing one of the island airports? Would it really cost that much to make one of them suitable for the likes of EasyJet, Ryanair, etc. to start flying here? Wight Airlines failed several years ago due to non-development of the airport, as it could only use a very small plane, which made it unviable. If you type in any of the cities, such as London, Liverpool, Bristol and Edinburgh, on Skyscanner, and do an everywhere search, you can fly to many places in Europe for just £19 return. The Channel Islands have flights to several destinations, even though they are smaller islands with smaller populations and fewer larger scale events and far fewer tourists. There are all kinds of funding out there for this kind of project, the Solent LEP being just one example. The UK government even funds some start-up air routes for a few years to see if they are viable or not. If people are worried about noise, the hours of operation could be restricted. Imagine the potential number of jobs that could be created and opportunities an airport could bring. Surely many businesses on the island would be interested in making this idea a reality. All I ask for now is people to sign my petition at tinyurl.com ecogin7 and join my Facebook campaign, so at least the relevant agencies would know whether there is demand for looking into making this into a reality. This would finally provide a possible alternative for getting to and from the island when the ferries are failing on a regular basis. Many years ago you could fly between Ryde and Portsmouth. Imagine now being able to fly to London or Edinburgh instead.
Reduced security, from Jackie Terry in Knighton. Thank you, Ian McKee, County Press Letters 26 of October, for inadvertently making the case for why we should stay in the EU. How can we think of going it alone in this unpredictable world? You failed to mention the Galileo project, which the EU have made clear we will not be able to fully participate in after we leave. Galileo is the global satellite navigation system, which is being created by the EU. After leaving, we will be excluded from the encrypted part, PRS, which will reduce our security. We have invested £1.2 billion in this project, but now we are looking into creating our own GPS system at great expense. Although it is possible the EU may relent on this decision as part of the negotiations, it remains adamant the UK will not be able to bid for PRS contracts. I believe we are already being affected by this. I have written to Bob Seeley to ask if he supports the people's vote. I have not had a reply yet, and so I do not know where he stands on this issue. I have asked him if he considers it to be anti-democratic, to explain to me the logic of this argument and why he would think it unnecessary to know the true will of the people now. Incidentally, European Space Agency is not part of the EU, and so it is incorrect for Ian McKee to say we shall have to leave it as a result of leaving the EU.
And from David Barney Ringer at Wroxhall, I am 82 years old, disabled, unable to walk unaided, and I have been helped by a care company since 2016. I must point out my complaint is not against any of the many carers who in general have been top class. My complaint is against the care company, which of course is providing its service to make a profit. What most people don't realise is that the carers are more than carers. You become friends. There are also social workers who help whenever they can on whatever problem you have. My complaint is twofold. One, the care company phoned me and informed me it was withdrawing its services with effect in 1 week, 7 days. No reason given. Also, one would expect to receive this in writing. This phone call was made by an office worker, not by a manager. Secondly, I am informed by the carers they are not allowed to contact nor visit me after the service has ended. This to me is an invasion of both mine and the carers' human rights. I have been very careful, in so much as I have allowed the company to vary my call times to suit its needs. I have never complained, although it did not always fit to my requirements. I am not aware of any complaints made against me by anyone in the firm. Finally, though I am covered by social services for the cost of the care, I contribute £93 per week myself.
Don't Axe LCs, from Sue Birch, Chair, Brading Residents Association. I'm deeply concerned at proposed cutting of the local coordinators, that's LC service. From my experience working within the community, I have found this service to be of the utmost importance. This service has become a lifeline to many because of LC's knowledge of what services and support are available. Many people do not have access to this type of information. The coordinators fill this gap. So what happens when this gap is closed? It will impact on other services. Recently, I met an LC who is helping set up a regular crochet meeting at the old school cafe in Brading. Activities like these are so important. They get residents out of their homes and mixing. These can be people living on their own or sometimes see no one. Is this new venture now at risk? Will these residents now be denied the chance of improving their lives and of having somewhere to visit and make friends? This, of course, is just one example of which I'm aware. There will be many more. I request Isle of Wight councillors do not support the demise of this treasured service. With due respect, I'm afraid those making the decision are probably living in a relationship and do not totally understand the problems of isolation. Loneliness is a killer and is well documented. There is nothing worse than being alone, with no one to talk to when you need to. Solve this problem and you reduce all the pressures on other services. This is why the LCs are so important. We appreciate it's all about money, but the new build and development at the Heights is astronomically expensive and will only benefit the minority of Isle of Wight residents. Then there is the money given to a poo museum. Say no more. Please get the priorities right.
Now we have looking back 100 years ago, November the 2nd, 1918. A cowman died mysteriously while at Little Budbridge Farm. William Henry Guy, 57, had been working out of sight of his colleagues when a train driver shouted and pointed to where Mr. Guy had been working. His colleagues found him with a broken collarbone, 2 broken legs, and terribly bruised all over. He died of exhaustion in the hospital. Influenza was rife among young children at Isle of Wight primary schools. The Newport Elementary School was closed until further notice, and village schools were following suit. The county medical officer issued a request. Sunday schools should also be closed, and under 14 should not go to the cinema.
75 years ago, November the 6th, 1943. A woman was killed in a tragic accident at the Merston Railway. Maud Mary Thomas, 65, had walked in a rush to the station. The driver of the train said he saw her enter the wicket gate to cross, so sounded his whistle and slowed the train, but Mrs. Thomas was hit. Sergeant Findon of Sandown, who had been at General Headquarters in Cairo for 4 years, wrote home to tell of 2 views of the Isle of Wight reproduced in the Egyptian Gazette. The first was a charming picture of Winkle Street, Calbourne, and the second was a view of Carisbrooke Castle. Sergeant Findon said they were the first pictures of the Isle of Wight published since he arrived in Egypt.
And 50 years ago, October the 26th, 1968, the island received a fine mention at a national talk about the RNLI. The speaker said the Bembridge and Yarmouth lifeboats were regarded as key boats, and the island could be proud of its record in connection with the RNLI. During the calls for less lifeboats and more helicopters, the Isle of Wight argued the lifeboat was crucial to Marion safety. A coin from the time of Henry VIII was found by a Ventnor man. Michael Teague found the silver coin on Ventnor Esplanade. The coin was identified by the curator of Carisbrooke Castle Museum as a 1543 Henry VIII groat.
25 years ago, October the 29th, 1993. Ryde residents united in their opposition to 193 proposed homes on land off Rosemary Lane. The group said they would involve the local government ombudsman and Secretary of State for the Environment if Medina Council's decision to back the scheme went ahead. The controversy was fuelled by allegations the council had contracts regarding the land more than 8 months before. A call to make the Isle of Wight a haven for the legalised smoking of cannabis was made by Sheridan Small, who said the Isle of Wight would be as popular as Amsterdam. The call was not supported by the island community drug team. Mr. Small said drug dealers would rather open shops and pay tax than pay low fines and have their names in the paper when in court.
And 10 years ago, October the 31st, 2008, the credit crunch hit the island's Earl Mountbatten Hospice, which announced it had to slash expenditure by £400,000 a year without affecting patient care. Chief Executive Graham Elderfield said the organisation faced tough decisions in economic turmoil. He said he was developing proposals and staff would be consulted throughout the process. Dozens of families were left devastated and hundreds of pounds out of pocket after the collapse of a Shanklin travel company. The owner of the Island Travel Centre said he was gutted and left with absolutely nothing. Two sisters had paid £1,700 to take their families to Disneyland, Paris, but had now had their hopes dashed.
And we now move on to White Memories. Talk on earthquake expert. The father of seismology, Professor John Milne, will be the subject of an illustrated talk at Carisbrooke Castle Museum on Tuesday. Starting at 2 p.m, Nick Minns, Kate Tiley and Graham Petrie will explore the life of Milne, an eminent Victorian earthquake expert, and there'll be a display of historic objects from the museum's extensive Milne collection. There'll also be a demonstration of the museum's working seismograph and a talk on the museum's role in contemporary earthquake research. Much of Milne's pioneering work was carried out in Japan, but on his return to the UK, he settled at Shide on the Isle of Wight, where he installed a system for recording seismic events, which had worldwide significance. Milne's work at Shide was supported by a network of friends and colleagues, many of whom also played significant roles in island life. To book a place, please call 523 112, and booking is essential.
And now we have White Memories. Remembrance of Fallen Scouts. The first Newport Scouts remember those from their troop who lost their lives in the First World War. Graham Drudge, chairman of the group, writes about research carried out and a trip to Belgium and France to commemorate fallen Scouts. With the end of the First World War being commemorated soon, first Newport Scouts are remembering the members of their troop who fell during the war. The Boy Scouts were formed 6 years before the First World War. During the First World War, Scouts played a very visible role on the home front, which demonstrated a valuable contribution to the movement made to the society. During the first year of the war, 1914 to 15, the government ran a poster campaign to encourage men to join the armed forces. On 2 posters published in 1915, the image of a scout was used to reinforce the message that everyone should be doing their bit for the war effort. As Britain entered the First World War, on August the 4th, 1914, Robert Baden-Powell, the founder of the Scout movement, volunteered Scouts to support the war effort. They were not to have military role, but could undertake work that released men for service in the armed forces. The skills earned through Scouting proved very useful in carrying out a range of jobs, including guarding reservoirs, working on farms, delivering messages, watching coastlines, fetching hospital supplies, and guarding railway lines. Many older Scouts and Scoutmasters went on to enlist in the army forces, and a number were killed on active service. Former Scouts were awarded at least 19 Victoria Crosses, the highest military decoration awarded to members of the British and Commonwealth Armed Forces. Towards the end of the war, Scouts worked with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission to help keep records of where the fallen were buried.
As a group, the first Newport have been looking back at the lives of some of the young men who were actively involved in the troop at and around the time it was formed. The group has specifically been concentrating on those members who went on to join the military during the First World War. Their names of those killed in active service are found on a memorial at the present headquarters of the group at Woodbine Close, Newport. patrol leader Harold Joe Dorr was 20 years old when he died on June the 8th, 1917. He's buried in Leesendhoek Military Cemetery, West Vlaanderen, near Popperinge in Belgium. Joe was the son of Harry and Francis Dorr of Fairley Road, Newport, and was serving as a private in the 15th Battalion of the Hampshire Regiment at the time of his death. Scout William Knight is commemorated at the Thiepval Memorial, Somme, France. William was 25 years old when he was killed on July the 1st, 1916. He was the son of Mary Knight of New Street, Newport, and was serving as a private in C Company of the 1st and 14th Battalion of the London Regiment, London Scottish, when he died. Scout G.P.N. Thompson is buried at the Nippe Bois, Rue de Bois, British Cemetery, Vieux-Béquin, France. He was 19 years old when he was killed on May the 4th, 1918. He was the son of Dr. and Mrs. C.I. Thompson of Sivier's Flats, Ryde. He was serving as a lieutenant in the 1st Battalion of the Royal Dublin Fusiliers when he died. Scout Charles Lane's name appears on the Ploegsteert Memorial in Hainault, France. Charles was 19 years old when he was killed between April the 9th and the 12th, 1918.
Charles was the son of William and Emily Lane of Spicer's Farm, Newchurch, and he was serving as a private in the 19th Battalion of the Machine Gun Corps Infantry when he died. Over the years there have been many families with the surname Knight and Thompson involved at the 1st Newport, and today there are members who are distant relations of Charles Lane. The group this year celebrated its 110th anniversary. In September, a group connected to the 1st Newport Scouts travelled to France and Belgium. Before leaving the UK, much research was carried out into the exact locations of the graves and memorials of all the 1st Newport Scouts who died in battle in and around the Flanders area. They visited all the locations where the 1st Newport are remembered. They placed a 110th anniversary wreath and badge on the individual gravestones and small remembrance crosses bearing the group's 110th anniversary badge at the various memorial walls where there was no individual headstone. Ernie Howard, chairman of the Newport and Carisbrooke branch of the Royal British Legion, arranged the wreaths and crosses, and the 1st Newport would like to extend its thanks for that. The group also experienced the famous last post ceremony at the Menine Gate, where a nightly act of remembrance for the dead of the British Empire forces has taken place almost every night since 1928 as a mark of thanks from the people of Belgium. A passage from 1st Newport, the history of the 1st Newport Isle of Wight troop, The Old Guard, by J.H. Burgess, published in 1946, reads as follows. Late in June 1917 came the terrible news of the death of Joe Dorr, news which cast a gloom over the troop for days. Joe was killed near Ypres on June the 8th. Beloved by the scouts of his patrol, simple and sincere, his memory is enshrined in the hearts of all who knew him. We had all looked forward to the time when Joe could return to the troop, Joe with his dry chuckle and quiet ways, his utter loyalty and his lovable nature. But it was not to be.
We now move on to My View. This is from Jake Harrison. Recipe for a brilliant bonfire night. Remember that bonfire night is almost upon us. So what better way to salute old Guy Fawkes and his foiled gunpowder plot than to do some plotting of your own and host your own bonfire night. Just try not to blow up the neighbour's cat. Bonfire night is almost here, which means the wife and kids are probably on your case to find somewhere to go to watch the fireworks. However, you've had a very long day, you're probably tired and highly grumpy, and the last thing you want to do is drive into a cold, packed field in the middle of nowhere, mingle with people you don't know or like, and burn your fingertips on overpriced sparklers, all the while probably contracting an inevitable cold or food poisoning from the overpriced and undercooked hamburgers on sale. So what do? You host your own party, that's what you do. We all know the island hosts some spectacular bonfire nights, but if you're unable to make one, then why not host your own? What could possibly go wrong? Here's my expert advice on how to host your own brilliant evening. Number 1, choose your arsenal wisely. Trust me, the wrong choice could make or break your entire evening. So what do you go for? Cheap, standard-sized fireworks are never a good idea. The bigger the better, I say. You know what I'm talking about. The pathetic-looking, weedy little things from Asda's clearance range that simply make no noise at all and fizzle out quicker than a Tinder first date. However, I must advise you stay clear of rockets that are as big and as powerful as an Mk-14 hydrogen bomb. They're a force to be reckoned with in the hands of amateurs and have the potential to blow up Bryston if misfired.
Fireworks that are simply too big for your garden could result in many shattered windows, as well as eardrums, dislodging roofing tiles, and even the odd chimney flying off so ferociously it instantly obliterates old Doris from number 2 into orbit. Still, I suppose it's a surefire way to win the most unpopular neighbour of the year award, and a great excuse to go into hiding for the rest of the year. Keep your guests warm. Hats and scarves, even wear thermals if you have them, and put on your warmest winter coats. Feed them well, they'll leave. Apart from enjoying the warm glow of your beautiful bonfire, your party cannot be successful without a good selection of food and drink. When it comes to parties outdoors, prepare a delicious menu that will ensure that your guests won't moan. Prepare your garden well. It's important to measure your garden, keeping a safe distance between your friends and the fireworks, because if your garden is the size of a matchbox, then you should take great care. Consider buying smaller fireworks and sparklers to enjoy the experience, or some of the guests could end up going home in an ambulance. You may hate them, but attaching your neighbour's cat to a rocket is all kinds of wrong. Pardon the pun, but this won't go down well. Animals and fireworks go together like frogs and lawnmowers. They quite simply do not mix, so leave the animals out of it.
This is from Matthew Chatfield, Why We Shouldn't Look After Wild Animals. This is the time of year when I, as a known spider enthusiast, welcome inquiries from friends and acquaintances about spiders coming into the house and get lots of people sending me pictures of big orb web spiders. I'm happy to give the standard answers, harmless to humans and pets. They'll go away on their own in a couple of weeks. They were there all along, but you didn't notice them when they were smaller. I had a correspondence with a lady last autumn who had made a friend of a spider that inhabited a web in her front garden. She delighted in telling me about the bond she had formed with the creature, which apparently responded to her and came to greet her when she offered it food. When it disappeared, she was disappointed her new friend had proved so fickle. I could hardly bring myself to say the animal was most likely dead, the victim of another spider. The tale made me wonder about the way in which we yearn to identify relationships with other creatures and feel the need to nurture them, often in inappropriate ways. This tendency seems to get more extreme the more closely we are related to the animals in question. Mammals like ourselves get the lion's share of attention. Who can resist the soft eyes of an abandoned baby hare in a field? Hopefully everyone. Birds, too, get the love of misguided humans. We know not to scoop up a fledgling when we see one, but what about feeding wild birds? It's a fine line between helping them and entertaining ourselves at their expense. We love to do it, but actually it can do more harm than good.
At Ryde Canoe Lake, there are signs imploring visitors not to give the ducks bread for their own good, and yet still people do. Where do we draw the line? Do people worry about frogs or fish? Certainly there are plenty of people who keep snakes and tortoises as pets, but can they truly say they have a relationship with a reptile? When you get to invertebrates, I challenge anyone, even a beekeeper, to convince me that they actually have a meaningful individual relationship with an arthropod or mollusk. When was the last time somebody came into a vet with a baby fly in a box, seemingly abandoned by its mother? Never, I warrant. The truth is we prefer to think of ourselves mighty humans in superior caretaker roles, but that's often a mistake. We feel as though we are looking after animals when we are actively doing something. In fact, the best way to look after wildlife almost always involves not doing something, not building houses, not driving cars, not buying plastic, not raising awareness with ribbons or badges. Leave them alone. Stop removing or contaminating their habitats, and the majority of wild creatures will manage just fine.
So we now move on to the What's On section. A First World War exhibition will be held in Knighton Parish Church from Tuesday to Tuesday, November the 13th, from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. On Sunday, November the 11th, there'll be communion at 9 o'clock in the morning, followed by an act of remembrance at the War Memorial.
The West Wight Slipshod Singers will perform with guests at Christ Church, Totland, next Sunday, November the 11th, in a Poppy Day appeal concert. And at East Cowes Town Council, there will be formally a commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, next Friday, November the 9th at 11 a.m, with the dedication of a memorial bench at the Town Hall, York Avenue, in honour of all the armed forces who served. There will also be a short service of commemoration taken by the vicar at St James's Church at the Town Hall. The 5 o'clock Shadows, a shadow tribute band, will be starting an island tour at Freshwater Memorial Hall next Friday, November the 16th, between 8 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Tickets are £7 on the door, and also from the hall between 9 a.m. and noon. An indoor market is held each Friday at Freshwater Memorial Hall, 8:30 a.m. to noon. Homemade cakes, bric-a-brac, plants, even puzzle books, produce, collectibles, greetings cards from 50 pence. A tea dance will be held at the Riverside Centre, Newport, on Monday, November the 12th, from 2 to 4 p.m. Northwood Church hosts a community coffee and chat on Thursday at Northwood Scout Hut from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. with a presentation from the ambulance service and history of conserving buildings, pictures, texts and artefacts charting 45 years of the Isle of Wight Society's Conservation Awards are on display at Key Arts, Newport. Barns, churches, houses, industrial buildings and more have all received a new lease of life, maintaining the character of the island. The exhibition in the Claydon Gallery runs until Saturday, November the 17th. It is open daily except Sundays and tomorrow, Saturday.
A new stage play to commemorate the centenary of the end of the First World War will see uniformed servicemen walk the halls of Northwood House again to tell their story. The new stage play, Voices over Passchendaele, uses original uniforms and props, including rare First World War aircraft equipment, which had flown over the Western Front, to tell people the story of one man's struggle to bring radio communication to the Royal Flying Corps. See the premiere on the Isle of Wight for 3 performances only on November the 9th, 10th and matinee on Armistice Day, November the 11th at 2 p.m. And contact Northwood House on 293642. Tickets are priced at £12.50 or £10 for members.
Updates on hotel. Premier Inn has launched a new website to keep residents up to date on the progress of the hotel being built on Sandown Esplanade. Parent company Whitbread said a builder's bulletin on the page will be updated regularly as the work progresses. The new £10 million hotel will have 100 bedrooms plus a cookhouse and a pub restaurant. The hotel and restaurant will create around 65 year-round jobs, Whitbread has said.
The Strand dug up. The Strand ride has been closed while electrical repairs are carried out. According to an emergency road closure notice issued by the Isle of Wight Council and Island Roads, engineers will need to locate the fault, dig up the road and repair a low voltage mains fault. The road was closed last Friday between the East Street and Monkton Street junctions and a diversion put in place. It is anticipated the work will be completed on Monday.
And Plogger Neil cleans up. Graphic designer and keen runner Neil McCall has decided to wage his own very personal war on litter in cows by becoming probably the first island plogger. Plogging began in Sweden and involves joggers combining jogging with picking up litter while on the run. Neil, 47 of Mill Hill Road, Cowes, runs once a week and, armed with a litter stick, picks up any litter he spies along the way. He meticulously sorts the litter into 2 bags, one for recyclable items and one for non-recyclable, after he was inspired by a TV programme about plogging. He said it is quite a big thing in Sweden. Basically, runners take a rubbish bag with them on their run and just fill it. The reason I started it was because I just wanted to feel I was doing something. He added, I regularly see rubbish left and always used to pick up stuff, but when I saw the programme I wanted to make it a regular thing. At the moment I am just doing cows as it is my neighbourhood. It has been both surprising and disappointing, the amount of rubbish I find, but it is an incredibly good workout.
Woman's body found at Buckham. The body of an elderly woman was discovered in Buckham Field yesterday, that's Thursday. The alarm was raised by a member of the public who found the woman near Idlecombe Farm off the main Buckham Road shortly after 9:30am. Following a 999 call, police, paramedics and Coast Guard rescue crews rushed to the scene off the main road between Carisbrooke and Shorewell. Police said the body was that of a woman in her 80s and her death was not being treated as suspicious. A file will be prepared for the coroner.
PS Ride Cash Appeal. A fundraising campaign has been launched to save the PS Ride. As reported, the crumbling paddle steamer has caught the eye of a restoration enthusiast who believes it can sail again. Lisa Turner, who owns ship restoration company Seawood & Co., said she fell in love with the rusty old steamer as soon as she saw it languishing at Island Harbour Marina. An appraisal has been carried out by National Historic Ships UK, confirming the vessel can be salvaged, but it will not be cheap. Lisa estimates it will cost between £7 million and £10 million to restore the PS Ride and intends to establish a charitable trust to fund it. First, however, she needs to raise £5,000 to cover further survey and removal costs. The vessel will need to be broken into 8 sections and taken away for restoration work. Once the restoration is complete, we would return her to the island, hopefully to sail regularly from Ryde, said Lisa, 35, of Cramlington, Northumberland, who has raised just over £2,000 so far. Everyone seems to want her to sail again. The PS Waverley rebuild shows anything is possible. Our supporters have been second to none, and their support has helped us to keep fighting to save her. We've had numerous offers to help from as far as Australia and America. Several attempts have been made over the years to save the PS Ride, a vessel with a fascinating history. Formerly a passenger ferry, then a wartime anti-aircraft vessel that took part in the Normandy landings, it was finally the Ride Queen floating nightclub. For further information about the project, visit the Friends of PS Ride Facebook page. Donations can be made at https://tinnearl.com/ybm6996.
Cowes to host another elite event. Cowes has earned the right to hold yet another prestigious sailing event. The RS Elite class have selected Cowes for the venue for their national championships in 2020. The Solent event will be hosted by the Royal Yacht Squadron, Cowes, between July the 9th and the 12th. It is expected the event will attract a fleet of 60 RS Elite class day boats. The decision to choose Cowes as the event venue was encouraged by the growth of the Cowes fleet of the RS Elites. The current 7 boats in the Cowes fleet are expected to rise in number by next season. To further encourage the growth of the fleet locally, several Try a Boat events will be held next spring. A recent convert to the fleet, Philip Wright, said, "The RS Elite is an ideal boat for Solent sailing from Cowes, with racing available 2 evenings a week, as well as weekends throughout the summer season. They can be sailed by 2, 3 or 4 people and are easily managed, with minimal maintenance required."
And now it's cheerio from Barry.
And goodbye from Sue.
Vectis Radio, FM 104.6, bringing the island's community together.
You're listening to Vectis Radio, FM 104.6, and of course online with me, Kelvin.
And me, Maggie.
And we now have our second guest in, do we not?
We have the lovely Chris in from Sight for Wight.
Yes, it's the Insight for Wight section.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, a little bit chilly.
A bit chilly.
But, we can't complain, can we?
No, we can't. Now, we're going to talk about the competition, which we'll mention in a minute. But
yes.
You wanted to mention first Island Con.
Yeah, I would. For those of a geeky nature, Sight for Wight, we attended both days, obviously with the charity, and we had an absolutely fantastic time.
Oh, that's nice.
And people were very generous. I have a full-size Dalek.
As you do.
As you would, yeah.
Who normally resides in my dining room. Mm-hmm. So he came along.
Okay.
Is he a butler?
Yeah, he makes tea and coffee,
right. Okay.
Yes, occasionally, if you ask him nicely. And it was just fantastic. People were taking photos with the Dalek and were sort of very generously just donating to the charity.
That's nice.
There was everyone, the vibe was fantastic. There was Star Wars characters, Chewbacca, Stormtroopers, you name it, and it was there. It was an absolutely fantastic
Where was
weekend.
it held this time?
It was at Cowes Enterprise College.
Oh, yes.
And it was the perfect venue. So if
Better than last year?
Better. I didn't go last year, but I heard it was a little bit cramped at Northwood House, as lovely as Northwood House is.
They may have been a bit overwhelmed by the success of it.
I think they were.
Yeah.
So I got to meet Sylvester McCoy.
Oh.
Yeah. So very enjoyable.
Do we know if it's coming back bigger and better next year, or?
As far as I know, I think it will be back. Whether it will be at Cowes Enterprise College, I don't know. I would hope so, because I think it was the perfect venue.
Okay. I'm glad it went well. I'm glad it went well for the charity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You made a few quid out of it.
Yes,
as well,
we did. Thank you.
And you got a chance to show off your Dalek on official business.
Absolutely.
Which doesn't happen very often, that, does
No,
it?
it doesn't.
Was Sylvester McCoy impressed with
He
your
was.
Dalek?
Yes, there is a photo on our website with the Dalek and Sylvester. So check us out.
Anybody else famous?
I saw Paul McGann.
Oh, yes.
Sophie Aldred, also from Doctor Who.
Yes.
There was Bam Margera from Jackass, I believe.
Don't know.
I've heard of him.
I have no idea what that is.
Ah, okay, yeah.
No, but you're getting outside our sphere of knowledge now.
Yes, but there were several celebrities that I didn't know, but who were very popular.
Oh, right, fair
Well, they
enough.
told you they were celebrities. didn't
Yeah,
they?
pretty much.
Could have been anybody then.
Could have been anyone, really.
Hi, I'm very famous.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did well there. We're looking forward now to December.
Oh, yes.
Now, how with the short story writing competition is well underway.
It is. In actual fact, the closing date is Friday week.
Yes. It's
Friday
only
week, so
just
and
over a week.
You can
Yes.
get your stories into Waterstones, to you at the
Here at Millbrook House,
Yeah.
or even if they wanted to drop them in
in here.
to you
In
guys,
here,
that's fine.
yeah.
So please do so. So Friday the 9th.
Just run round what it's about and what's happening.
Okay, well, basically, as you know, this is our third year running the short story writing competition. This year, we normally have celebrities read the winning 3 categories.
You do?
This year we have 4 celebrities.
Ooh.
So we still have the 3 categories,
Yeah.
but we're going to have a fourth, like a special a category, if you like, for an
Okay.
outstanding story.
Mhm.
If you remember from year 1, we had a lad called Solomon who was just age 4.
Yes.
So we gave him he got a special prize.
He got a special prize, and his story was recorded by Katie Manning.
That's
at the
correct,
time.
yes, yeah. So it'll be kind of that kind of thing again. So we have a couple of new celebrities. We've still got the lovely Adana Minghella.
You have.
We've got Melvin Hayes,
Yes.
who's coming back for year 2. And we've got 2 newcomers. We have Joe Brand
Yes.
and we have Kate Weston.
Yes.
Yes, we have Kate Weston from our colleagues across the water there. Now, I had an online interview with her quite recently.
Oh, wow.
And I said I'd play it out when you were next in, so I will do that now, and then we can talk about what else is going on. So this is me talking to Kate Weston, who's far better at radio than I am. I've been joined by Kate Weston, whose voice you will readily recognise if you've been driving around the south. She's going to be one of the celebrity voices recording the winning stories for the Sight for Wight Christmas story writing competition. Hello, Kate.
Hello, Kelvin. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. And you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I have been a tad poorly, but I'm back fighting fit now and perky and really looking forward to the amazing stories that we're going to be given, hopefully, from everyone on the Isle of Wight.
I'm sure you'll get plenty of stories to read. How did you get involved with this competition in the first place?
Well, Chris Kane from Sight for Wight just approached me and said, I'm looking for some people, that might like to read a story. And I suspect he knows that I've got a little lad who's 10 now. And I love reading my little boy's stories. And it's something I've always done since he was really tiny. And years ago as well, on the TV, I used to work at GMTV and I did the children's programming there. And we did stories there on the telly. So it is something I'm really keen on. And I thought, yes, why not? This sounds like a really good, fun competition.
It is. I've been involved with it for a few years now, and the actual event is great fun. We play little snippets of the winning stories to see if the authors recognise them. So your voice will definitely be heard there.
I can't wait to see, actually, what I'm going to get.
Well, nobody knows yet, as the entries are still coming in, so it's always a surprise.
I see. Well, yeah, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, the magic of Christmas is the theme this year, so I think it's going to get me into the festive mood.
It certainly will. And are you going to come to the event in Newport?
Do you know, I may well try. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to or not. I know I'm sounding flaky.
No, not at all.
It's just Christmas and work and family can get a bit bonkers at my end. But I'm really excited about it.
Well, we'll be getting copies of the winning stories as recorded by you and your fellow celebrities, and I'm sure we'll have as much fun listening to them as you will recording them.
Do you know, I'm sure I will.
You join a panel of great voices, including our own Idana Ingela, Melvin Hayes and Joe Brand, so it's an interesting mix of voices.
Be interesting, but I'm really looking forward to it. I love doing things like this.
Good. It should be fun. Well, it always is fun. Thank you, Kate. We'll chat again after you've done the recordings. Thank you for your time, and bye for now.
Okay, bye, Kelvin.
Right. Well, that was Kate Weston from Wave, who's one of your celebrity voices, Chris.
Fantastic.
And she's got a lovely voice.
She's got a lovely voice, great diction,
yes.
And very bubbly. She was so nice to me when I organised the recording. She was really, really helpful. So I'm looking forward to I hope she can make it, because it'd be nice to meet her.
Yes.
Good, yes.
But nevertheless, the stories now go into, once you've closed the actual entry system, they go into being anonymised.
Yes. The lovely Maggie is involved in the anonymisation. Is that a word?
Anonymisation.
Yes.
And then they're sorted into their categories, and then they'll go off to the mystery judges.
Mystery judges.
Yes. So watch this space or listen to this space.
Yeah,
even.
and we'll know, but we won't know the actual outcome publicly until the event.
Until the
award ceremony.
So shall we take some music and a break and come back and talk about the award ceremony, because that's always a nice little thing. Now, we were talking before the break about the story writing competition. Just go through the categories again.
Yes, of course.
If you would mind,
we have 3 categories. Mm-hmm. We have under 12s, 12 to 17, and 18 plus.
Okay.
So the 18 plus, the word count is 1,500 to 2,000.
Right.
And the under 18s is up to 750 words.
Okay.
So,
And there's a small fee for entry, isn't there?
£2 for under 18s and £5 for adults.
Oh, okay.
And is it a freshly written story or one that's been published?
It's freshly written, yes. So novice budding authors, I think our poster says.
Okay.
Yes. And now the standard the last few years I've been involved has been extremely high.
Excellent.
Fantastic, absolutely. And the imagination of particularly the children is fantastic.
Some were very dark.
Very dark imagination, some of those children.
They were.
Very dark.
And I will say is that the winning stories will be recorded by the celebrities, and they will be broadcast here on Vectis Radio.
They will.
Certainly the winning ones will be broadcast over the Christmas period, because the other ones won't be recorded until later in the season, will they?
We are hoping to do all of them, all the runners-up stories, in time for the award ceremony this year.
Oh, okay, that's good. Because then, well, we can probably put the whole lot out over the Christmas period, if that's okay with you.
That's
excellent. I can hear our stage manager go, phew, that's a job I haven't got to do over Christmas. No, that's good, because it'll help their Christmas theme as well.
Yes,
so that's really, really good.
It will.
Now, The award ceremony itself is this year in a different venue.
Yeah, this year we are here.
Here,
Well, not here.
not in this studio because it'll be really cramped.
At the Riverside Centre.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
And it'll be warm.
It'll be warm.
And there's car parking.
Yes.
Yes.
Everything's there, so it'll be a perfect venue. So
And
It's a lot
fr-
easier,
Free
isn't it?
entry, isn't
Yeah.
it?
free entry. Yeah, we're very, very excited about this year.
That's good.
We're going in a slightly different direction. It's going to be more entertainment, if you like.
All right.
It's still an award ceremony, but we're throwing in a bit more entertainment.
Throwing it
We're
in.
throwing it in. Yes,
Really?
yes.
Do these people know they're being thrown in?
They do, yes, yes. So I'm sort of delighted to report that we have a choir called Melodic
Oh, right.
who are going to be opening the ceremony. And also, I really want to give this guy a bit of a plug because he's been absolutely amazing. And that's Huxley, magician.
Oh, yes. He's brilliant, isn't he?
Has been fantastic. Not only just for the award ceremony, but he was at Island Conn as well. And he was doing some tricks, which was drawing people over to our stall. He did a trick on me, and I was absolutely blown away.
Gobsmacked. I don't know
Absolutely
how you do
gobsmacked.
it, do they?
No, so if you're looking for an entertainment magician, then
Yeah.
He is
Huxley's your man.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's actually. Well, I won't step on your story too much, but he is coming to our variety night
Fantastic.
in the new year. So he's promised his services for that, which is great.
Yes, so I know he's got a couple of sort of gaps in December. So yeah, so
He is absolutely
Yeah, it's very,
brilliant.
very good.
first class guy.
So you've got that. You've got musical entertainment. You've
Yes.
got, and of course the prize giving itself.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
bar will be open, so
The
there'll
bar will be open.
little snacky things.
Little snacky things,
Yes.
Big
yeah. So
evening.
yeah.
And to crown it all, you'll be there.
I'll be there as well. Yeah, normally I'm behind the video camera on the night.
Yeah,
So-
and we'll be doing sound and doing some interviews
Yes,
and things there.
please.
We can
Yes.
do that.
So you MCing?
No, I'm still sort of working on that,
Right.
but we nearly had someone to MC. In fact, the lovely Kate Weston was sort of thought she had somebody for me, but unfortunately they can't help us out.
No.
So still
Well, it's
looking.
a bit near Christmas, isn't it? What
Yeah.
date is it?
It's Monday the 17th,
Yes.
which is you
Yeah,
know
it's
people are
close enough.
busy, which
People are busy.
I understand.
Well, if anybody fancies MCing it, give me a call, 240-666.
Please do.
You never know. Perhaps we get Ian Mack to do it. You never know.
You know.
Ian, oh, no. Yeah.
Who's he?
Yeah, he's off to get some new glasses, apparently, so he won't be
Oh,
listening
right.
to us. So we're looking forward to this. It's going to be really good. You've got to get your stories in by Friday week.
Yes, Friday the 9th.
So if you haven't started writing
Can you
yet,
go and collect them?
I will go and collect them from Waterstones at close of business
Mm-hmm.
Friday afternoon.
we haven't had any in here as yet, but if we do, I'll let you know and you can come pick them up, or I'll drop them into you, one or the other.
Yeah.
And then, is it 10 o'clock on Saturday morning?
10
the team
o'clock.
will descend on Millbrook House?
Yes, yep. So
And
the
start anonymisation processes.
yes, you rememred my word.
We've got to get off up to the news.
Oh,
So thank you very
alright.
much for coming in and telling us about that, Chris. It's been
Pleasure.
great. And because he's been talking about Island Conn and because it's Chris, you know what I'm going to play?
Doctor Who and the Medics.
No, not that. It's the Time Lords.
Doctor in the
right.
TARDIS.
Doctor in the TARDIS to take us up to the news at the top of the hour, and we'll be back with some other nonsense after that.
Okay.
Now we've still got Chris here. Hi, Chris.
Hi, you can't get rid of me.
No,
We
he's
tried.
we've superglued into the seat. So
Wouldn't
he's
go out the door.
no. You've got a few other things you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I wanted to mention we've got a quiz night coming up.
Okay.
That's at the Waverley Inn in Carriagebrook.
Oh, the Waverley's the one by that roundabout at the top of the
Yes.
hill, and you can't quite see round if you're coming from the West White to see what's going on.
It's a tricky one, isn't
It's
it?
a
It
tricky
is a
one,
tricky
that,
one.
yeah.
They've got a
Yes.
nice car park there, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Yes.
So yeah, that's on Thursday the 8th of November.
Mm.
And there are teams of 4, and it's £3 a person.
Mm.
You can actually, I better give you the time, hadn't I? That would be handy. It starts at 7:30.
All right.
But if you want to eat, then you need to phone the Waverley Inn and beforehand. But it's a really good quiz. Paul Rutherford is our quiz master.
Oh, yes.
And
He's one of
really.
your trustees, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, and he's great. It's a very popular quiz.
Good.
So if you're
It's not about farms, is it?
no, not this one. No, let's not go there, Maggie.
Okay.
So yeah, please come along and
Okay.
support us there. And just as an offshoot, we were talking about like Island Conn and going back to the summer. You know, we did a lot of outside events. We did the Pride event,
Yes.
and you get chatting to very interesting people. And I spoke to Spider-Man.
Did you?
Oh, right.
I did at Pride. a.k.a. Matt Gregg from Nosy Design. I'm only mentioning him because people have been so very supportive. You know, we talked about Huxley and how helpful, and many people have been so supportive of the charity. But Matt, particularly, he did a lovely video, a Sight for Wight video of us recently. Absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's good.
You know, and sort of generously donated his time. So
that's nice.
It's really thank you to everyone that supports our charity.
Yes.
So we really do appreciate it.
Good. Excellent, and why not?
And no, why not?
Why
indeed?
not indeed? We're looking forward to the competition and the entries to the competition going through, and the ceremony in December. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
And we'll have you in again next month to talk a bit more about it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And we'd love to interview the winners.
Yes, we may well be
If they will allow us
If
to.
they'll allow us to, we'll be at the ceremony. We can do a little interview with them and see how they get on.
Fantastic.
And how they feel.
Vectis Radio, FM 104.6, broadcasting from the Riverside Centre in Newport, giving people the opportunity to broadcast no matter their age or ability. We make entertaining radio whilst offering affordable advertising for local businesses. Vectis Radio, vectisradio.com.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter White. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Do you dread this sound? You know, that realisation when you wake up and you hear the rolling bins and you think, oh my goodness, I've forgotten to take it out again. Well, tonight, how to get the right rubbish into the right bin when you can't see what you're doing. As recycling gets more and more complex, we look for some answers to what feels like a forgotten problem. And could the work of some artists have been enhanced by their failing sight? Did, for example, Leonardo da Vinci have a squint? We'll find out later. But first, you don't work on In Touch for very long without realising that almost every problem has a blind-friendly solution, and it's as likely as not to come from a listener. But initially, when we began looking at the challenges of recycling, we came up against an unusually blank wall. We were thinking about it because the new producer of the programme, Lee Kumitat, as many of you will know, is herself blind, moved and discovered that she needed to solve this problem all over again about how to recycle. For a start, different councils always have differing approaches to what they want in which bins, indeed how many bins they give you, and how they deal with people who fail to abide by their rules. And very few people we approached about this appeared to have given much thought to how visually impaired residents could be helped to do their bit. So, before we come to solutions, how do blind and partially sighted householders cope at the moment? Tom Walker has been getting some answers from Liverpool and first Birmingham.
Hi, I'm Josh Feehan, 29 years old. I live on my own with two small children and I work with visually impaired people.
Do you recycle?
I try to. However, due to the colour of the bins, it's difficult to understand which bits of rubbish go into which of the bins.
What colour are your bins, do you know?
The normal refuse one is a black and red colour, and the other one is a dark green colour. However, and I've got another one as well, which is purple, which I struggle quite a lot to do it. So I end up sometimes putting my normal refuse into the green waste bin.
Have you been told off by your local council for doing that?
The bin men have picked me up on it a number of times. However, they're quite understanding when I explain about my visual impairment. One of the biggest problems is when they introduced the bins, I was not told or given any of the information. So it was just given it to me, and the form that they gave me to explain what was going in what was in paper format, which obviously I couldn't read.
Do you know, actually, though, what rubbish should go in which bin?
So I'm led to believe, but this hasn't been told explicitly by the council to me, it's just what I've been heard of. The black bin is for my normal refuse. The blue bin, I believe, bluey purple, is for plastic and glass. And the greeny bin is for garden waste. And that's all I know. I got given two plastic boxes as well, blue and red colour. Never been told what they were for either. So it is very difficult, to be honest.
What needs to be done to enable somebody like you to recycle successfully?
Better communication from the local authority, engaging with me through the website or promoting it or sending me information in the format I want it. And potentially maybe doing something with the bins, consulting with blind and parasitic people on what type of bin would be more helpful, different shapes potentially.
And what about the indications on the packaging itself? Do they help you at all?
No, they don't, Tom. And unfortunately, I don't live with anyone either, so I can't get any help from those people either.
In an ideal world, would you like to be able to recycle your rubbish?
Yes, Tom, I would really like to recycle more. It's not a fact of being lazy, it's just a fact of living on my own, not having the information in the format I need, so I can't physically do it.
So this is where I keep my water, in the fridge, like most people, I guess, and that's my water bottle, which is ready to go into the recycling now, because it's empty. So I tend to pile everything up by the front door here, Tom. So I've got my water bottles without the tops, and I've got my tins and my paper. So that's all ready to go outside now.
I'll follow you.
So in Liverpool, our recyclable bins are our blue ones. So I always make sure that my bins are in the same area. And in everything goes, so apart from bottle tops. Hello, my name's Ian Mitchell. I live in South Liverpool. I've been visually impaired since birth and I have albinism, nystagmus and photosensitivity.
Ian, let's talk rubbish.
Again?
Do you recycle?
I do my best to recycle, Tom. I have to be honest. I'm not always sure I get it right, but the will is always there.
What are the specific problems you experience?
I think the problems that I experience is really not having enough information to know what's recyclable and what's not. I do have some sight, so I'm fortunate in the fact that I can distinguish between the bins. In Liverpool, it's 3 different colours, so if you can see colours, then you're fine, but if you can't see colours, then there's no tactile difference, there's no size or shape difference to the bin, so you'd be a bit stuck, I could imagine.
You do your best to recycle, but I think you've recently found you've been getting 1 or 2 things wrong.
Yeah, I always thought that anything that was plastic was recyclable. So I drink an awful lot of water. So there's 3 components to bottles of water. There's the packaging the water bottles come in, there's the bottles themselves, and there's the bottle tops. So I used to put all 3 in the bin. And recently, on listening to the radio, I found out that bottle tops should not be recyclable. So I know now I don't put the bottle tops in, but the bottles go in. And now I'm not sure what I do with the packaging. Does the packaging go in or do I not put the packaging in? So
one thing I wasn't aware of is that there are markers on packaging and tins, etc., which tell you whether they can be recycled. Was that something you were ever aware of?
No, I can't say it is. That puts another spin on it then, because I might be recycling other things that I shouldn't be putting in the bin. But I guess I've got a choice, haven't I? I either try and recycle or I don't recycle. And the process after it leaves my bin, I guess I have to rely on other people to determine whether I've put the right thing in the bin or not.
Have you ever had any comeback from the local authority telling you that you're getting things wrong?
Yes, I once had a sticker put on my bin telling me that I was naughty because I'd put some polystyrene in there once, and they'd obviously opened the bin and seen it, so I had to remove that and put it into the normal rubbish.
What needs to be done to make it easier for people like you to recycle properly?
More information, more accessible information, should I say, because I dare say the City Council come back and say it's all on their website, but if you've ever tried to sift through a government website, it's not always the easiest thing to try and find information. So maybe information in leaflets or braille formats or alternative formats that actually give us the information of what we need.
Tom Walker reporting there from Liverpool and Birmingham. Well, the problem seems to be that there's no consistency of approach to recycling. A typical reaction we got when we talked both to councils and the Chartered Institute of Waste Management was a sympathetic interest in the problem, but an admission that there wasn't any concerted policy about how to help visually impaired people. Well, Wayne Priestley is Principal Advisor on Environmental Matters at APSI, that's the Association of Public Service Excellence, and they advise local authorities on best practice. And Wayne joins me in the studio. You've heard what those residents had to say, and what was clear that they weren't indifferent to the issues. You know, they wanted to do it. They wanted more help so they could recycle efficiently. What would you say to them? What help should local authorities be able to offer them?
I would say most local authorities probably, when they send out the information on recycling, are not aware that people have visual impairment. So the first thing people need to do is notify the local authority of that situation, because otherwise they will treat everybody, the same, and therefore the information you get will be on paper, it'll be on your bin, which if you're visually impaired really isn't much use. You
see, that isn't necessarily something that somebody would want to do. Visually impaired people don't go telling everybody that they'd hope to be able to move into a place and be... I understand your point, but it probably wouldn't come naturally to people to do that.
No, and I appreciate that as well. But I think if they are struggling with that, any person would get hold of the local authority. There was one instance where a gentleman there had a sticker placed on his bin saying, "You've got it wrong." That happens to everyone. And usually what happens is the local authority will send a recycling officer down to offer advice. Now, the issue here is they've got to do that sensitively, because people have got an impairment there, but they need help. And that is the best way to get the recycling done, because then they can offer that help, whether it be assistance with collections, whether it be putting things on bins to make them more tactile, if you like, to understand what goes in those bins. And there are examples across the country of that.
Of course, there is that issue of which bin is which, and colour isn't very helpful. But there's also the issue of what you're allowed to recycle and what you aren't. Ian gave the example of bottles, the actual plastic cover you can do, but not the bottle tops, for example. There's a lot of that kind of thing, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think the problem with that is each local authority has its own arrangements to dispose or send for treatment the waste it collects. And often the processing plants are different in each authority. And you will get those that can handle that type of material and some that can't. And there is therefore a need to speak to the producers of these materials and find out, can they make this packaging easier to recycle?
What are the chances of getting some kind of concerted policy? I appreciate that local authorities are all, independent. They want to do things their own way. But this isn't really about doing it different ways, is it? It's about having agreed methods of labelling. It's about having perhaps agreed policies in terms of collection. Would that be too much to ask?
Well, certainly I think the government's developing a new waste strategy, which is looking at producers making materials which are far more recyclable and easier to recycle. And if that was the case, then it would make it far easier for local authorities to collect, because the waste wouldn't be as complicated to collect. And it would therefore be easier for people to know which bins to put waste in.
But my point is, you've got organisations like the LGA, the Local Government Association, and yourselves. Is it beyond the wit of those organisations to have a concerted policy, at least about things like identification?
No, I don't think it's beyond that, and I think it's something that is being looked at, and particularly now that a lot of the waste that the UK, recyclable waste that the UK used to send abroad to be processed, a lot of that now has been rejected by countries like China and other Southeast Asian countries. So therefore the quality of recyclables has got to be better, and the only way you can do that is to make it simpler to recycle.
Wayne Priestley of the Association of Public Service Excellence. And one little tailpiece to that, we're hoping that this item will start conversations about this issue. And the Chartered Institute for Waste Management did tell us that they were hoping to start some work on the subject with other relevant organisations. Let's have your top tips for recycling, please. Sadly, it's a bit late now to get some top tips on painting and sculpting from Leonardo da Vinci, but the fact is that there is a strong possibility that despite his enormous artistic talent, Leonardo may well have been visually impaired. The evidence suggests that he had strabismus. That's an eye condition where the eyes aren't properly aligned. In other words, that he had a squint. But that far from being a disability for an artist, this might explain his rare ability to bring an impression of depth and distance to paintings on a flat canvas. It's a puzzle which Christopher Tyler, who's Professor of Optometry at London City University, has been determined to clear up.
So the kind of strabismus that he has seems to be intermittent exotropia. So the eyes are divergent, but in some portraits they're straight. So this suggests the condition of intermittent exotropia, in which the person can straighten their eyes if they're very attentive, but if they are inattentive or relaxed, one eye will drift out. So these mean that the two eyes are not working well together, and in fact this would generate the impression of double vision. So the person would see everything double, and the brain deals with this by suppressing the image from one eye. So in that case they're seeing with monocular vision. With monocular vision everything looks much flatter. This may be an advantage for artists because they're trying to translate the three-dimensional world onto the flat canvas. On the other hand, the fact that the condition is intermittent means that people with this condition may be well aware of the sort of transition between 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions, and give them an enhanced awareness of the cues, the painterly cues that convey a 3-dimensional impression on the canvas.
So you're saying that Leonardo da Vinci would have known, I mean, he could tell that he had this condition, that he saw things differently to other people, yes, and he was making use of this in his painting.
The implication is that he was able to make use of it, and it could go part way to explain why he was so exquisitely sensitive to the 3-dimensionality and was able to bring it out, unlike other artists of the era.
Professor Christopher Tyler. Well, other later famous painters may also have had this condition. Rembrandt, possibly Salvador Dali. And this isn't the only eye condition with which painters have struggled and sometimes enhanced their work. Ross King is the biographer of Claude Monet, who began losing his sight in later life.
By 1912, when he was about 72 years old, he made the discovery that, as he put it, he was blind. In fact, he wasn't actually blind, but he was suffering from cataracts. And in fact, he was soon after diagnosed as being legally blind in his right eye. And apparently he had only 10% vision in his left eye. He was encouraged to have an operation or operations on each of his eyes at that point so that he could see. But I think quite wisely, he decided that he would not. For the reason that there were all sorts of precedents by 1912 of people who'd had cataract operations that were unsuccessful. What's interesting about his situation is he resumed painting and began painting on a very ambitious scale by 1914 and made no complaints about his eyesight until about 1920-21, when clearly his eyesight, such as it was at that point, was getting worse.
In that period that you've just talked about, is there a difference in the way in which he painted than he had before?
After 1914, when he resumes painting after this diagnosis of cataracts 2 years earlier, is that he has supersized his canvases. He begins working not on canvases that are the size that he'd worked on for decades previously, i.e., 3 or 4 feet wide by 3 or 4 feet high or smaller. He begins working on ones, for the most part, that are over 6 feet high and that are anything from 12 to 14 to 20 feet wide. And he's also using much thicker brushes, or brushes with a much greater width.
Magnification.
That's right.
But did it change the way, you say he magnified it, but he does say, doesn't he, towards the end, in that period you're talking about where his eyesight was getting very poor, he says, my poor eyesight makes me see everything in a complete fog. It's very beautiful all the same, and I'd love to have been able to convey this.
That's right. There is no question that at certain points, especially 1923, 24, when he went into a very black depression, understandably because of his poor eyesight, he was affected by it at that point, and he virtually stopped painting simply because he could not convey it. The problem seems to have been colour, his problems with colour, and also with judging what he painted, because he, after his operations, his eye doctor told him, For an ordinary man, I have restored the sight, but for Claude Monet, who was known through a kind of sad irony at this point as having had the best vision in the history of art, he said, for Claude Monet, I cannot restore his eyesight.
Ross King, biographer of Claude Monet. And that's it for today. You can call our action line for 24 hours after tonight's programme. The number 0800 044 044. Or you can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or click on Contact Us on our website. And that's where you can also download tonight's In Touch and other previous editions. From me, Peter Wight, producer Lee Cummertat and the team, goodbye.